Hello, welcome to today's webinar. We're going to focus on leading as one. This is a monthly series of webinars that we do. I'm so happy to be with you today. My name is Mark Christensen. I am the founder of Learning Point Group, a firm that's been around for 35 years now. We've had the good fortune of working with organizations around the world to help them grow their leadership capacity. And I am also a senior consulting partner with the Blanchard organization, which does a lot of the same. So happy to be with you today. Today's topic is one that's really important to me. It's really important at this time. I hope that your year 2024 is starting out great. This is a really important time for organizations to take a close look at the leadership within their organization. I want to start with a question for you. When you see those words, lead as one, when you see that, what does that mean to you? It could have different meanings to different people. I'm going to clarify here in a moment what I intend to focus on with regard to leading as one here in a minute. But what does that mean? What does it mean to you to lead as one? So one possibility is that it means be that person, be that one, be the one that makes a difference in the workplace, in your world, in the work that you do. There's a tremendous amount of good and a tremendous impact that even one individual can have on the situation. So the influence of one is really, really important. Okay, so that's one possible meaning of leading as one. Another meaning is to find unity, oneness in the relationships that you have one-to-one with those that you work with, right? That you're looking for common ground. You're looking for that opportunity to be united, to be aligned, to collaborate with the individuals with whom you have the opportunity to work. That too is a great, both of those are really, really important. And then the third one, and this is the one that I would really like to focus on in this webinar, is this idea of leading as one team. Leadership is a team effort. The impact and the influence of leadership within organizations is more than just the influence of the collective individuals, the collective influence of the individuals. It is also a dynamic that happens when there's synergy and alignment within the team of leaders, especially at the top, the senior leadership team. And so I want to focus on that idea of leading as one team, with one mind, one message, one method, one way of going about it, and some of the benefits, some of the impact that can have on an organization. Okay, so I mentioned the senior leadership team. Ideally, this begins with what I like to call the senior leadership team. And so what do I mean by senior leadership team? Well, what I mean is the senior most leader of either an enterprise, a business unit, a division, a portion of the organization, that senior leader and that senior leader's direct reports. That's what we're talking about here. So it could have different names. It could be called the senior leadership team or the SLT. It could be called the executive team. It could be called the top management team. It could be called the leadership team. And even though we're talking about the senior leaders of the organization, the same concepts, the ideas that I'm going to discuss on this webinar today, they really do apply to that leadership team, regardless of where that leadership team is positioned in the organization. All right. And so think of the senior leader and that the senior leader's direct reports that make up that senior leadership team. And when that team is functioning effectively, you should see two really important outcomes that are the result of leading as one, all right? And the first one is increased results, that the organization is accomplishing the results that it's intended to accomplish. And those results could be things like quality, how good the work is that they do, the value that they bring, that they create and deliver to whoever it is they deliver it to, the quality of the work, the productivity of the work, how much, the volume of work, the speed at which they get it done, the financial strength, the profitability, which is a function of both revenue growth and cost management, right? And cash flow. Those are results that organizations need to pay attention to, regardless of what the organization is. It could be private for business, or it could be a government organization, nonprofit, all of those still need to focus on those things, the quality of what they do, the productivity of what they do, the financial performance of what they do. The morale of the organization is another really important one. So every organization has results, desired results, things that it's trying to achieve. Safety, security, compliance. Those also are important operating results for the organization. Well, leading as one will increase those operating results. The other thing that it should do is enhance the culture. So think of the culture as the experience that people have with that organization. Culture is the collective experience that people have that comes from the behaviors of the members of that organization. Okay. Think of the brand of the organization, the personality of the organization. It is the experience that people have. So it's both the experience that your constituents, your customers, the outside world has with your organization. And more importantly, it's the experience that your employees, the members of the organization, have with the organization. So leading as one should produce increased operating results and enhance culture. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, I mentioned that it should start with the senior leadership team, and it should. Ideally, that's where leading as one starts. A unified, aligned influence of leadership throughout the organization starts with that senior leadership team, and there's unique work that only a senior leadership team can do. It's interesting, and I guess this is why we stay in business, is that research has shown time and time again, and it's consistent with our experience, is that leadership teams, senior leadership teams, don't always feel like they're functioning effectively. They're not performing at high levels, okay? So a recent study by the Center for Creative Leadership in 2020 found that 65% of senior executives described their leadership team as ineffective. 65%, okay? Only 19% felt their team was high performing. All right, so there is a need and there's an opportunity. And one of the things that we have found in the work that we do is that, first of all, this is fairly consistent with what we have found. And obviously that's why we get invited to work with leadership teams, is because they see a need to improve. But the other interesting thing that we have found is that when senior leadership teams start to focus on this, strengthening their teams and aligning and becoming one, unified as one, they find that they can actually make that transition. They can do that, okay? It's not a matter of lack of competence or even commitment to do it. It's often a matter of lack of focus and having the right roadmap and tools to do it effectively, all right? And so I want to focus on that a little bit. Now, our experience, consistent with a lot of research that's out there, shows that most members of leadership teams are put into that position because they performed extremely well within their function, within their area of responsibility, within their discipline. They know it inside and out, which is awesome. And they're very, very bright. They're very intelligent. I've met so many very extremely capable and competent people, regardless of what their area of expertise is. It could be operations, it could be technology, it could be engineering, it could be finance, it could be human resources, it could be, service delivery, value chain. It doesn't matter what area. We have extremely capable, educated, talented, effective individuals that know how to run their function extremely well. And they take ownership for their function, right? That is the thing that they identify with. And so when they come to the senior leadership team table, they come with their gear, right? Their area of expertise. That is what's on their mind. And they're coming to the table representing that function, that area of responsibility. And they want to make sure that no other part of the organization or no other person kind of grinds on their gears. They want their gear. They want to protect their gear, which is all perfect. That's great. They should be doing that. All of that should be there. I'm not suggesting that we diminish that in any way, all right? But they're focused primarily on their function, and they're there to represent their role, their function, their area of responsibility. And we have also found that most often their mindset, their focus, their interaction, their communication is transactional more than it is transformational. Meaning they're focused on how they can keep those gears moving to get through the day, to get the product out the door, to get the numbers, whatever it might be, whatever their area of responsibility is. And they're very comfortable talking transactionally. They can do that as well as they can talk about the weather. But what is oftentimes less apparent and they're less comfortable talking about the transformational aspects of even their function, their division. They're part of the organization, but also, and more importantly, the transformational aspects of the organization as a whole. Okay. And so when they come to the table, to the senior leadership team table, oftentimes success is measured by how well we're getting along. We're not really getting in each other's way. We're able to coordinate, we're able to cooperate, we're friendly to each other, we're civil to each other, and we're staying out of each other's way. You're not grinding on my gears, and I'm not grinding on yours. And that's great. A lot of great work can happen. A lot of success within organizations happen at this level, but there is a higher level that I want to discuss. And hopefully this graphic kind of illustrates a little bit. It's the yellow stuff. It's the culture, it's the goo between the different functions, right? So when a senior leadership team that's truly leading as one, they are coming to the table 100% focused on their function and their area of responsibility. And at the same time, they're coming to the table 100% focused on the vitality, the success of the organization as a whole. And they view each other, the other members of the senior leadership team at the table, not only as people that they need to kind of coordinate with and cooperate with, but as partners in building that enterprise, building that function, building that organization so that it truly does grow in its vitality and in its ability to really accomplish what it's designed and intended to accomplish. So it's not either or. It's not a distribution between focus on the function and focus on the organization as a whole. It's both. And we have found that executives, senior leaders can do both. They can actually focus on both, and the one enhances the other. They also they become very capable and competent. We like to call it conversational capacity to do this. They're very capable of having conversations that are both transactional and transformational in nature. I remember a few years back, a senior VP of engineering asking me, well, what should be the percentage between, how do we carve out time for transactional conversations versus transformational conversations? Should we have one meeting that focus on the operations and the transactions of the business, and then another meeting where we focus on transformational? And I said, no, time out. You do both. Both can happen in the same conversation. It's just that, if you've exercised the muscle, the transactional muscle, and that's the strong one, and you haven't exercised the transformational muscle, then the transactional muscle is going to take dominance in that conversation. But both muscles are part of the body, if you will, if I could use that metaphor. You just need to start to develop the transformational muscle so that you can use it in unison with the transactional muscle, right? So as you have conversations on a transactional basis, it's like, it might have to do with logistics, or it might have to do with putting in place new machinery or whatever it is. You're doing that partially with a transformational mindset. How is this going to impact our culture? How are we going to grow from that? What is it that you need, and what do you need in order for this to work well? How can we actually function as a unified team in communicating the macro message around what these changes are that we're implementing that might be transactional in nature, but every single transactional thing, every single transactional conversation that we have with the people that we work with could indeed have some transformational value to that conversation. So it's not about adding time or carving out time or distributing the time a certain way. It's about remembering to have some mind share around both transactional and transformational. And the focus isn't on getting along. The focus is on let's get better. Let's continue to get better. We're showing up for work each day, not just to work in the organization for another day. We're showing up to also work on the organization to make the organization better, right? And so that connectedness, that glue, that the culture, whatever you want to call it, that unites and creates that synergy between the senior leadership team members is what we're talking about here. That's leading as one. You're thinking as one, you're committed to each other, you're working on the whole in addition to working on your individual area of responsibility. All right, so what is some of that unique work that really, in my opinion, only the leadership team can do, okay? It's unique work that the leadership team should do. And I'm going to provide a list of some of the most common ones that come to mind for me. It's not an all-inclusive list. There may be other things that your senior leadership team can work on, but it'll give you an idea of the types of things that I'm talking about, all right? The first one is that the leadership team continually perpetuates the brand, the culture, the spirit of the organization, the desired culture of the organization, and they do it through their direct reports. So it's on purpose, it's a strategy, it's a message, a unified message and method to where you're working through your leaders, your direct report leaders, to perpetuate the brand, the culture, and the spirit of the organization, okay? The second one is that you're continually looking at and improving, optimizing the value stream. Now think of the value stream, regardless of what kind of organization you have. The value stream transcends all of the different divisions and functions and departments of the organization. It is the lifeblood. It's the backbone of the organization. So think of the value stream. It starts with the very first contact. Let's say for a business, it's the very first contact that a potential customer has with that organization, all the way through to the delivery of the product or service that your organization can provide to that customer. So the very first contact, through the sales process, through the contracting process, through the exchange, through the delivery of whatever it is you're providing to that customer, the communication that happens with that customer, the satisfaction that the customer has with the product or service that you provided, and the information you get back from that customer on that satisfaction and that experience that they had, to the follow-up with that customer so that you can then maintain that relationship with the customer and add to that repeat business and so forth. That is the value stream. It's the process, the system that is really the core of what you do as an organization. And almost inevitably, always, that value stream transcends the different functions and departments of the organization. And every single department, every single subset of the organization should either directly touch the value stream, contribute to the value stream, or indirectly contribute to the value stream. All right. And so the senior leadership team understands that value stream. They understand the big picture. They're not focused just on one aspect of it. Each member of the senior leadership team is partnering with the other members of the team to take ownership for the entire value stream. That is their business. They're constantly working to improve that value stream, to make it be the best it can be for the organization to thrive, okay? Another key area that is usually unique work for the senior leadership team is to foster that cross-functional collaboration. Kind of goes with the previous one. If you understand the value stream, and that's in place, then you understand the benefits that can come from facilitating collaboration between functions, between divisions, between departments, modeling that, showing that, making it possible. And we're going to talk here in a little bit about the systems that the senior leadership team can put in place. We call them the 5 high-impact systems that make collaboration between different functions possible, okay? Another one would be to promote and protect diversity and inclusion within the organization. Now, obviously, in the past few years, especially, it's always been a need, and it's gotten more attention in the past few years. And some approaches to enhancing diversity, equity, and inclusion within organizations have not been effective, but many of them have been. And there's been a lot of research that shows that organizations that actually focus on and make inroads into increased diversity within their organization and increased inclusion in a variety of different ways, not just the obvious ones, but in a variety of different ways, they are actually able to thrive at a higher level, right? So those areas of quality, productivity, financial performance, safety, morale within the organization actually are better. They increase because of the diversity and inclusion that's part of the organization. And we've learned that there's effective methods on how you can do that. And that is something that really only works when, or it works best. I shouldn't say it only works when, but it works best when the senior leadership team is taking ownership for how that's playing out within the organization, all right? Another one is to strategically grow leadership talent at all levels. Now, this one's a favorite of mine because I truly do believe that the group that should own leadership development within an organization is the senior leadership team. They should own that the same way that they own the financial performance of that organization, the same way that they own the technology development of that organization, the same way that they own, the strategic product development of that organization. Leadership development as a strategy can make a huge difference within the competitiveness and the vitality of that organization, okay? And so the senior leadership team, in our opinion, should own that. That doesn't mean that they have to that has to consume all of their time. They can have really great professionals, oftentimes they do, that understand leadership development, they understand learning technology, and then they work in partnership with the senior leadership team to make that happen. But the senior leadership team takes ownership for it, so that the type of development that happens, and by the way, it happens best outside of the classroom, not in the classroom. Okay, it happens in the context of the everyday work of the leader. That's where the real leadership development happens, okay? When the senior leadership team takes ownership for that, then it can make a big difference, all right? So that's some of the unique work that the senior leadership team can do. Another one is that SLT, that senior leadership team, is increasing the capacity for high stakes conversations. That's something that's on their mind. They want to work on that themselves within their team, and then they want to influence that. They want to grow that capacity throughout the organization. Organizations, oftentimes individuals within organizations, unless they're given the opportunity to grow that capacity, they will avoid those conversations, right? Because they don't know that they're going to end well. They don't know that they're going to be successful. And even senior executives on the executive team will do that. So that's why they oftentimes will migrate towards more transactional, operational type discussions, because they're very comfortable and they're experienced in having those kind of conversations. But when it comes to, more dicey conversations that have to do with growth, or have to do with the makings of, value alignment and the makings of a stronger, cohesive team or function, or the interactions between two teams, oftentimes those executives have less experience doing that. They have the capability to do it. I truly believe that they do, and they oftentimes have the desire. They just need the roadmap and the tools to help them increase that capacity. And then as they do that and they model that, then they can increase the capacity for high stakes conversations throughout the organization. All right, the next one, jointly see the path ahead. What I mean by that is that the senior leadership team together looks out at what's coming down the pike, right? What's coming next? And I like to call this the mountain bike metaphor, all right? So I have a friend, a neighbor, who is an avid mountain biker. He coaches mountain biking at the high school and small college level. He's an expert. And so I'm not a mountain biker, but I've gone a few times. And I've talked to him because I've gone and I've actually taken a few spills. And he's taught me this technique that a good mountain biker should do. A good mountain biker is consistently kind of in a cadence, looking about 50 yards down the trail, down the path. 50 yards, 25 yards, and then just beyond the tire. They're not focused just on beyond the tire. They're not focused only 25 yards. They're not focused only at 50 yards. It's kind of a constant scan back and forth, because if you're not looking 50 yards out, or maybe sometimes even more, then you don't have a full understanding of what's coming up that you need to prepare for. The same is true with 25 yards out. You need to see that now as it's approaching closer, and you can gauge that with your speed, and your balance and other things that you're operating when you're operating on that mountain bike. And the same is true if you're only looking just beyond the tire, then you're going to miss that longer term perspective. If you're never looking just beyond the tire, then you're going to miss some of those immediate obstacles that could throw you off balance, that could throw you off your bike. And that's happened to me a few times, right? So it's a constant scan of, senior leadership teams. They need to be really good at being farsighted, but also being nearsighted. And they do it together. It's part of what they do together. It's part of their cadence is to look at what's coming down the road, 3 years out, 5 years out, 2 years out, next month, this week, and so forth. And they're good at all three of those perspectives: far, midterm, and then immediate, just beyond the tire. All right, and the last one that I want to come back to is this blend of both transactional and transformational thinking and interaction, right? So they become very capable of holding transactional conversations, but then looking always for those opportunities for transformation, for growth, for building relationships, for enhancing the talent, the capabilities, taking advantage of the strengths that you have within your team and within your organization. So these are some of, not all of, but some of the unique work that senior leadership teams need to be a part of. So each member of the team is responsible for their function, for their area of responsibility. And when they come together and meet together as a senior leadership team, they also work on these things, okay? And so those 5 systems that I mentioned earlier, that, if the senior leadership team can help put these 5 systems in place, these 5 systems will have a high impact on the leadership capacity of the entire organization, okay? And those 5 systems are connection, clarity, collaboration, capacity, and consistency. Okay, now it's got to be something to this. There's got to be some magic here, because they all start with C, right? I call them the 5 C's: connection, clarity, collaboration, capacity, and consistency. So a lot of the work that was on the previous slide can happen as a senior leadership team is putting in place the mechanisms, the systems, the influence that these 5 areas can have within an organization, and also within their team, within the senior leadership team. So I want to take a minute just to talk through each one of these, okay? So connection, what do I mean by connection? What I mean is that the members of the team are connected with each other personally, right? They know each other. They've uncovered each other's strengths and idiosyncrasies. They're committed to each other. They're connected with each other. They identify with each other. They're partners with each other. They view themselves as partners, not just members of the same team that show up on the org chart. They're actually partnering with each other to make the organization better. And that leads to the second one, is that they're connected together. They're connected to the purpose, the cause, and the vision of the organization and of their team, how their team contributes to that purpose, cause, and vision of the organization. So if they're a food bank, they all have that connection, that emotional connection to solving hunger, right? If they're a technology company, they have this passion and this connection to the technology that they're building, that they're developing, that they're promoting, that they're selling, and so forth. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is they're connected to those that receive their value. They take time and this goes back to the value stream. They take time to understand who it is that actually benefits from what they do. And so that could include the external customer, but think of the key stakeholders of that team. And this is where a lot of teams, they don't spend enough time exploring this. The key stakeholders, anyone that directly impacts or is impacted by the senior leadership team, they are the ones that are receiving that value. So that includes the leaders that they lead, right? It includes the employees of the organization. It includes the other constituents that they have, the partners that they have, within their operating realm, within their area, their industry, within their area of existence. And so they understand who those people are so that they can better understand the value that those people actually see and want from the organization and from their team. And then they come back to the final one, is that they're connected to their why as a team. So time and time again, I've worked with very large technology companies with global brands that you would recognize immediately, products and services that you use every day. And yet when they come together, a certain portion of business unit within that organization, whether it be technology, whether it be energy, it doesn't matter, whether it be the Department of Defense, they oftentimes, these members are so focused on their individual area of responsibility that they can't articulate the why. Why do we need to work as a team? What is it we need to do as a team? My job is to make sure that my program or my area, my function works effectively. That's how I contribute to the team, right? But there's a higher level of work that we reviewed earlier that explains why. Why do we need to work collectively, partner together to make this organization better? So they become connected to that. So they connect with each other, they connect with purpose, they connect with the value that they provide, and then they connect with the why. Why do we need to function as a team? And then, so that connection starts first. It needs to happen first, because with that connection comes a more natural, more fluid communication process, right? The conversations can be richer. They can be more natural, more with agility and with authenticity in the conversation. So the connection, it needs to happen first. You need to work on it first, and then you never stop working on it. It's the constant nutrition of the team. The second one is clarity. That clarity is really the biggest benefit that you can provide, the biggest service, the biggest gift that you can give to the people that you lead is clarity, all right? So they may be clear on the vision and the overall cause, and they may be committed to that, but they need clarity on some other things too. They need to be clear on what the priorities are today, this week, this month, this year. They may understand and love the idea of crossing the river that looks great on the other side of the river, but they need to know where the rocks are to step on to cross the river. They need those priorities. They need to be clear on that, okay? They need to be clear on what the goals are. The goals need to be measurable. There needs to be metrics around those goals. They need to be specific. They need to be measurable, right? They need to be clear on the roles that each person plays, both within the team and within the organization. Some of those roles and responsibilities are shared amongst team members, and some of them are unique to their specific area of responsibility. They need to have clarity around agreements that are made and accountabilities to those agreements, commitments that we make in day-to-day interactions and meetings that we have. And then the last one's a huge one for me, is a leader provides clarity around the progress that we're making. It kind of ties back to the goals and metrics, but a good leader is able to help them clearly see the progress that the team and the organization is making. And they make it intentional. They're constantly showing, describing, using dashboards or graphics or whatever it might be in their stories, in their narrative. They're constantly showing the organization the progress that they're making. It's kind of like the scoreboard, whether it's verbal or graphic or whatever it might be. It's the scoreboard in the game. It's showing them how well they're winning as an organization and as a team. A leader needs to do that. Number 3 is collaboration. Think of collaboration as team-based communication, which is different than top-down or one-way communication. It's both communication, but it's communication with the purpose of actually creating positive workflow. We're actually learning and communicating with each other so that we can do this work well together. Okay? And so it's team-based, open, multi-directional communication that leads to positive workflow. And it should happen within the team, within the relationships in the team, but it should also happen horizontally, outside the team. How you as team members interact horizontally with other peer level functions and teams within the organization. And it should happen vertically. That as a leader, it's not just top-down communication, it's more collaborative, it's open, it's two-way, it's multi-directional, that you're actually facilitating collaboration with your direct report leaders, and you're helping them to do the same thing with their direct reports. So collaboration is that team-based communication where the synergy becomes greater, the ideas emerge, the conversational capacity is part of that process, and you just raise the level of accomplishing greater work through mindfully growing the ability of the organization to collaborate with each other. And then the fourth area is capacity building. All right. So if you think of capacity, the bigger the capacity is of a machine, the more work that machine can do, right? The capacity of a gas tank, the bigger the capacity is, the more it can carry. The same is true with people in organizations, right? So you're growing capacity. You're growing capacity of yourself and of other individuals, which means you're building the ability of that person to succeed at their job. And you're also building the motivation of that person to succeed at their job. And you're doing that within yourself as well. But then there's also the team. The team is an entity in and of itself. So you can have highly skilled individuals, but that doesn't mean the team has high level of capacity. So team capacity has to do with the scope of the team. Is the scope right? Meaning the area of responsibility for that team, is it correct? Does the team have the skill to function effectively as a team? And are they actually creating together this synergy that will allow them both the energy and the competence and the capability to really discover and put in place a higher level of performance? And then also the organization as a whole needs to grow its capacity. And it does that through culture building, but also through putting in place the right processes. And this comes back to, that core process is the value stream of that organization. And so the senior leadership team this is one of the 5 high impact systems, is on purpose, strategically growing capacity at those 3 levels: individual, team, and organization. And then number 5, one more thought on this idea of capacity. Think about this. I've seen this play out so many times within organizations, that a focus on capacity is going to get results more effectively than a focus on results will get you results. I remember years ago being asked to work with an automotive manufacturing organization that had 5 or 6 different manufacturing plants in the US, Canada, Mexico. And when I arrived at one of these plants, I was to meet with the plant manager, the general manager of this manufacturing facility. And he met me at the front desk, and he said, "Sorry, we're not going to be able to meet today." I was there to meet with him to begin a strategic leadership development process with all of the leaders in his organization. And I had flown there to do this. And he said, "Sorry, I can't meet with you today. We've got work that we need to get done. We have product that we need to get out the door." And so I came back the next day. Obviously, me being there was costing this organization money. He said the same thing. He said, "You know what? This is not going to be a good week. We've got work to get done. We got product to get out the door." And that was his mindset. Unfortunately, within a couple months, he was removed from that position. He was so mired and focused on results that he wasn't getting the results. And of course, our approach, it might be biased, but our approach is a little bit different. It's focus on capacity first, and capacity will get you those results. Stephen R. Covey talked about the difference between production and production capacity. It's the same idea, right? That's how you get the results, the sustained results. And so that's what number 4 is all about. Now, number 5 is consistency. That as a leadership team, you're constantly working to build the consistency of your organization. Consistency within yourself. You're showing up the same way every day, for the most part, right? You're a consistent person. They're not getting a different version of you, radically anyway, from day to day. You're building consistency within your team, and you're building consistency within the entire organization. Consistency reduces doubt. it reduces fear, it reduces waste, it increases the agility of the organization to adapt, to change, to execute, and it makes continuous improvement possible. So consistency doesn't mean doing the same thing the same way forever. It means finding the best way to do it for self, team, and organization, and then do it that way consistently until you find the next best way of doing it. All right. So for each one of these 5 areas, we've actually developed roadmaps that can help a leadership team do this work in the way that makes sense for their organization. So it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's not off the shelf. It's the senior leadership team needs to do the work to make these 5 areas of connection, clarity, collaboration, capacity, and consistency work in the way that works for them and their organization. But the roadmap helps them think about and talk about and design and implement the way that would work best for them when it comes to these 5 areas: connection, clarity, collaboration, capacity, and consistency. All right, so here's the good news. Here's the magic of this, is that you can actually grow as you lead as one. You can grow this idea of leading as one as you're doing your everyday work. Again, it's not distributed. It's not necessarily where you have to apportion a certain amount of time for strategic leadership and then a different portion of time for the day-to-day operations of your organization. It can all happen in unison with each other. So strategic leadership growth can happen as you do the everyday work of the organization. All right. And so there's 3 areas that we believe are really important for senior leaders, the senior leader and the members of the senior leadership team, to work on individually and with each other. And the first one is to grow yourself, work on yourself. Take the time to really make sure that you have what you need to show up the way that your organization and your team need you to show up. Now, the skills, the education, the training that you received 10 years ago, the experience that you had 10 years ago, even 5 years ago or 3 years ago, may not be what you need today. So working on yourself is an ongoing effort. Take the time to do that. We provide a roadmap that helps senior leaders. It doesn't show them the exact script, but it gives them a roadmap so that they can actually do some diagnosis, some self-awareness, so that they can actually grow into the opportunity that's in front of them right now. The second area is to work as a team on the team. So work as a team to grow the team, the capabilities and the skills and the practices of the team, so that the team shows up in the right way for the organization. And then the third one is, as a team, as a senior leadership team, strategically grow leadership at all levels within the organization. We actually really believe that that should be one of the key pieces of work that a senior leadership team does, is they actually they own, and they strategically work on the growth of leadership capability and capacity throughout the organization on a regular basis. That then gives them the competitive edge that they need as an organization. Okay. And so that is what I wanted to share with you today. I appreciate you taking time to be with me. If any of you would like to discuss this further, it's one of my favorite topics. Just reach out to me, mark@learningpointgroup.com, and we can have a discussion on this. So thank you again for being on here. Best of success as you move forward and as you consider how you can lead as one within your organization. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.